So we are going to be having a quiz. Our quiz is going to be, we're going to move it to tomorrow. I wasn't going to, but I think we're going to have to because Thursday is a Schedule B, and then Friday is some people are at BPA stuff. So I think, unfortunately, the best day for us to have this is tomorrow. The format is going to look almost exactly like what you see here. There are going to be 6 problems similar to what you see here. They may not be in the exact same order, but other than that, they're going to look very similar to what you see here. So let's start with what you want to look for. If you see an x squared plus a y squared equals a number, anybody tell me what that is? What kind of graph that would be? X squared plus y squared equals a number? If they're both squared, it has to be a circle. So where it says type, just tell me the word circle. The center, remember, is our HK. In this particular one, our H is the opposite of what we see by the X, so positive 1. There's nothing by our Y, so that's a 0. Go over to your graph paper. I'm going to call this number 1 here. Go over to your graph paper, find the point 1, 0, and mark it with a C. Our radius is going to be the square root of that number. So our radius is the square root of 16 or 4. So go over to your graph paper from that center, count 4 to the right, 4 to the left, 4 up, 4 down, and do your best to make something that appears somewhat like a circle. Okay? So that is problem number 1. Problem number 2, I'm going to put over here. Now, for problem number 2, if it's x squared over a number plus y squared over a number equals 1, and the numbers underneath are different, both have to be positive, both have to be squared. Anybody remember what kind of type that is? It is like the oval. It is the ellipse. We're going to find the center the same exact way. Our center is HK. We have nothing by the x, but we're going to go the opposite of our y. So let's go over to our graph paper to 0, -1, and put that on there. Now, I am not going to do the vertices here on the page until I've done them over here. So let's kind of take care of that together. Under the x, I have the smaller number, and I'm going to go in the x direction, the square root of that. So my change in x is plus or minus 2. So I'm going to go over to the page where my center is. I'm going to count 2 to the left and 2 to the right. Now those are the smaller ones, so I am going to call those the co-vertices. So now where the co-vertices are sitting, I have added and subtracted 2 onto my x from center. So that would be 2, -1, and -2, -1. Feel free to use that plus or minus notation if it works for that particular problem. Okay. Next, the change in y, because this is under the y, is the square root of 9, or plus or minus 3. So in the y direction, that's our larger number, I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3. Down 1, 2, 3. That's the larger one, so those I'm going to mark with vertices. So my center, I have changed my y by 3. So those points happen to be 0, 2, and 0, -4. And you could count it out if you wanted. And then make yourself something that looks kind of like an egg. So that is number 2. Any questions about our ellipse. Okay, let's take a look at numbers 3 and 4. You may notice that both 3 and 4, both the x and y are squared. There's a minus between them, and it's equal to 1. Both of those happen to be hyperbolas. Those are hyperbolas. The centers of both of those, very nice to do. Now let's start with number 3. The center is the opposite of what we see with the x, the opposite of what we see with the y. This is the x, this is the y. That's how I use -3 and -1. I'm going to put number 3 here. Please go to my graph paper, go to the point -3, -1, put on a C. The x comes first. That means they're going to be opening left and right. You can put LR. You can write the words left, right, however you want to do it. The change in x is plus or minus 2. The change in y is plus or minus 3. It was under the x, I square root, that's where I got the 2. It's under the y, I square root, that's where I got the y. Slope is always plus or minus change in y over change in x. If it's under the y, it comes on top of the fraction for slope. If it's under the x, it goes on the bottom. So my y value goes on top, my x value goes on the bottom. So to graph these, I'm going to go from that center. I'm going to count rise over run, up 3 over 2, up 3 to the left 2. If I count up 3 and over 2, or up 3 and the other way 2. And I'm going to make my x. I'm sorry, I'm not great at graphing. At least making it perfectly straight, but you get the idea, okay? Where do our swoops on the left and right side go? Well, it should line up with this. It should go out to in the x direction, because the x's came first, 2 points. So just from center, count out 2 to the left and 2 to the right. You said they opened left and right. They do. And then make your swoops. They head toward there. Head toward your asymptote. And that's number 3. Okay, that's all I need to see on the graph paper. Now, let's do number 4. If it's by the x, that is the center for our x. If it's by the y, that's our... There are no values by our x and y, so our center is at 0, 0. You'll see our x squared just as a plain old x squared, 0 is added to it. Our y squared is a plain y squared, 0 is added to it. So our center is at 0, 0. So I'm going to put number 4 over here. So put a dot at 0, 0, make it a center, make the C. Because the y squared comes first for number 4, it is opening up and down. So you can put U and D. You can write the words out up and down. Don't care. Okay. Let's do our slope. Under the y is a 4, so that's plus or minus 2. Under the x is a 9, so the square root of that is plus or minus 3. So our slope is always the change in y over the change in x. Under the y was a 4, so that's why the 2 goes on top. Under the x is a 9, that's why a 3 goes on the bottom. We got the same numbers in the same order as number 3. But what's essential is what is it under? This is under the y, so it goes on top. This is under the x, so the square root goes on the bottom. What is it under? Okay. So now let's make our slopes. So remember, our slope is 2/3. So count up 2 over 3, up 2 over 3, up 2 over 3, up 2 over 3. And you can even do it, like I really am not great at graphing a straight line without like a tool that helps me. So feel free to keep that slope going. And tomorrow, or whenever we take the test. Yeah, we're going to have to do it tomorrow. I'm so sorry. Anyway, when we do it tomorrow, feel free to grab a ruler. Okay. Now, where do we put our hyperbola pieces? You know they're going here and here. So how much did we go up and down? That's our y, 2. So go over and count up 2 and down 2. They're going up and down. How much did we go up and down to make the slope? 2. How much did we go up and down to make the little spot of our parabola? That is actually technically our vertices. I didn't ask that, but it is. Just kind of follow those. Okay. 2 more kinds. 2 more kinds on the quiz tomorrow. That will be 5 and 6. 1 parabola opening up and down, 1 parabola, or up or down, 1 parabola opening left or right. Let's take a look at number 5. We know it's a parabola because it's x equals y squared. We know it's a parabola because it's x equals y squared. So that's a parabola that's opening to the right. Number 6 is a parabola opening up. So that's what I'm looking for, okay? Now, I'm going to find the vertex and make a table for each of these, and then I'll be able to graph it. The vertex y value is negative b over 2a for this one. For this one, it is the x value. Y equals x squared always opens up or down. Y equals x squared always opens up and down. And so since the x squared is positive, it's going to open up. X equals y squared opens left or right. If it was x equals negative y squared, those are the ones that open left. Okay, so let's do that for number 5. Negative b over 2a, that's 2 over 2, or the vertex is at 1. Now remember, that's our y value. We got to plug that in. We got to plug in also, because this is our vertex, 1 below it, 1 above it. If I plug in 0, I get negative 3. If I plug in 1, I get 1 minus 2 minus 3, which is negative 4. When I plug in 2, I get negative 3. So my vertex is, once you do it on the chart, I would answer the question then. And now we're going to put number 5 right here. Okay, so at negative 3, we are at 0. At negative 4, we are at 1. At negative 3, we're also at 2. So it looks something like that. So that's why it opens to the right. Number 6, a parabola that is opening upward is the standard, the x value is going to be negative b over 2a. So let's do that first. Our a value is 1, our b value is negative 4. Please put a little x here. I'm sorry, when I typed that, I forgot my little x. That ain't going to work otherwise. So please put change that for me, put an X there. Typo for Mrs. Hahn. Okay, so the B value is -4, the A value is 2, so that will be 4/2 or 2. So that is our X value of our vertex. So we got to plug in 1 below it and 1 above it. So if we plug in 1, we get 1 minus 4 minus 12, which is -15, I believe. 1 minus 4 minus 12, yeah, sure. When I plug in 2, I get 4 minus 8 minus 12, so that will be -16. Now, when I plug in 3, what should I get? -15, right? That's the way that we check if it's right. If I plug in 3, I get 9 minus 12 minus 12. That's 9 minus 24 or -15. So great. That's a good way to check your work. So then fill in the vertex over here. That's that middle value of 2, -16. And now we got everything we need about our parabola. Let's put it over here. For my y values are pretty big, or in a negative way. Let's do the same thing we did before. Make this 10, make this -10. And then it should be okay. Okay, at an x value of 1, so I'm just looking at my chart right there. At an x value of 1, my x's, I'm just counting by ones. I am down -15. So 10, 12, 14, 15 would be right there. At 2, I'm at -16. And at 3, yeah, at 3, I'm also at -15. I think we're good. Yep. And our parabola looks something like that. There we go, there we go, there we go. Okay, so at this time, please turn this in. You're getting points for doing it. This is what you want to study tonight. There will be a quiz tomorrow. It's going to follow this same format, 6 questions. It kind of asks you all of those things. So this is what you want to study, and that will prepare you for the quiz.